Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Between Podcast. I'm Matt Matson, your typical host, and also joining me today is our now pretty regular co-host, the Reverend Danny Hilliard. Danny, how you doing today?
Hello, I'm good. Good to be here.
Man, it is good to be here. We're going to talk about prayer. We decided, listen, folks who listen to this podcast, Danny and I mostly just like to talk to each other and hang out and then record it and hope something good comes out of it. And sometimes the day before, we're like, we have this on the calendar. What are we going to talk about? And we'll go back and forth. Typically, the text messages look like this: "Hey, Danny, what should we talk about?" I don't know. Any good ideas? Not really. What about you? And then silence, this is exactly what happened yesterday. And then like 9 o'clock, 9:30 last night, one of us texts the other with like, what about this? And so, and the response is, yeah, oh, that's perfect. So we got to wait for the Holy Spirit to inspire us to know exactly what the topic of conversation is going to be. Danny, I think that's how it worked. I think we just made room for God to come up with the agenda for our conversations today. Do you agree that that's what happened? Do you feel like that's what we did?
100%. I'm not saying we're the holiest of human beings by
No,
any means,
no.
but I do think we take as much fun as we have in the podcast. We do take it seriously of people are going to like we are now voices in people's earbuds and headphones. So what do we truly want to be saying? What do we like rather than just being another noise that people listen to for a period of time and then turn off. I think you and I are trying to be very intentional of how do we want people to feel when they listen to this conversation? What do we want people to take away and take into their everyday lives? So I think you and I put a little extra pressure on the topics of podcast where there's a bazillion podcast topics that we could choose. But I think because we take it so seriously, we're often waiting for the other to come
That's
up with
exactly right.
that topic.
This makes me think about like the people in my life, like you, Danny. You're one of a list of people in my life who I love to like go to coffee with and hang out with. And I've talked about this a million times. I've got a book coming out about this. Like I think that is my favorite place to experience God is like let's go to a coffee shop and let's be with each other and let's talk. But almost always I feel like I need a reason to ask you to go to a coffee shop and talk, like, or ask somebody to go grab a beer, or there needs to be a topic or a prompt or a problem that we're trying to solve together, or a project that we're working on together. Like there has to be like a thing that
Mm-hmm.
gives me permission to text somebody and be like, hey, you want to go grab coffee so that we can talk about this one thing. But I kind of think that's like me fooling myself. What actually is happening is me craving connection and making up a reason to hang out. And my whole life is based on me making up reasons to hang out with the people I want to hang out with, and then coming up with stuff together while we're there. And that's the fruit of my life is that stuff. And so maybe this you and I just trying to figure out, I don't know, what's the unique angle that we can really have a real sacred conversation and record it today. What's a reason we can do it, like because we just want to do that. And I just want to point out, I think that's an okay thing. i
Mm-hmm.
think I think if there are people out there listening who need a reason to go talk to somebody today, maybe it's or to text somebody and invite them to coffee or to hang out someplace or to invite them over to pie in their living room. Maybe it's, hey, I listened to this podcast and I wanted to talk to you about it. Like if we have to give you a reason like to make up to have real conversations or to have sacred moments of connection with people, let us be that gift in your life. So anyway, Danny, the topic we came up with today is prayer, and how prayer is uh, a tricky thing sometimes. Prayer is a weird thing sometimes. Prayer is something that a lot of people do, a lot of people do very differently, and a lot of people keep kind of secret about how they actually pray. Uh, and maybe even don't stop to consider. A lot of people don't stop to consider what prayer is for, why prayer might matter, and why praying in the way that maybe we see on TV or we saw a pastor pray when we were kids isn't the only method for exploring it and experiencing it. So Danny, how do you normally pray? Maybe that's the right way to start. How do you normally pray? Like that's an okay thing to admit. Maybe this is the time for confession. Is prayer important to you? How do you normally pray, Danny?
Yeah, I am cracking up just in this whole introduction of, you and I struggling to find a topic. And then hearing you say it, we choose one of the most difficult topics, like, is prayer, like the holiest, sacred, most like undiscussed topic in people's personal spiritual lives. And we're just like, yeah, that's a great one. Anyways, that's just kind of cracks me up. When I think of prayer and my everyday life and prayer is I've got two styles of everyday prayer. One is very meditative, and it's early in the morning. I've always been an early riser. I've always found my most inspiration and my most grounded self in the early hours of the day. So me, it's in the early morning, but it's not. It's journaling actually, and most of that is sorting my thoughts, and along with those thoughts come little prayers that I also write of like what I'm feeling, what I'm experiencing, what I'm processing through. And then usually those life experiences that I'm journaling about become these side conversations with God of, oh, yeah, that's really difficult, or that person's really difficult. And, I'm gonna make a note that I'm praying for them in my heart, and then I'm gonna keep processing through my journal. So I've always been somebody who loves to write, somebody who loves words. Writing makes most sense for me. And then the rest of my day is this ongoing dialogue all day long of, most of the time it's, where do I need to be right now, other than the places that I'm scheduled to be and have to be for work and personal reasons. But like, what do I need to be doing right now? How do I need to be showing up? Uh, who is around me right now? Who am I feeling that needs a prayer? I pray all the time, driving especially. Um, it's a dialogue of, travel mercies. May I get to my next destination safely? Whoever I'm meeting at that next destination, I hope they're well. I hope these people around me, especially the ones that I I really hate right now, who are speeding and riding my bumper. I'll pray for you. Sometimes those don't sound the same. Uh, and a huge one too is first responders. Like, especially for those of us that live in busy, bustling cities, you're always hearing sirens. You're always seeing, and so a lot of the time it's prayers over that. Wherever they're going, whoever they're serving. If I'm passing a hospital, uh, so it's a very observant prayer all day long.
That's cool. This is you and I have never had this conversation. So even just hearing you describe, let me say out loud that asking your friends how they normally pray is a pretty good prompt to get to know them on another level. Like Danny, that was a couple things like first responders. That idea of every time I hear a siren, um, maybe that might be a little cue in my mind um, to consider compassion, to hold other people's pains in my heart, to want health and well-being for others, to uh, think about uh, suffering and to consider it. Like if that is a little cue, a little Pavlovian cue in my heart when I drive past a hospital, Danny, what a great prompt to imagine just for a moment, even for a flash, imagine all the rooms and all the people in all those rooms and all the family members and loved ones and friends of all the people in all those rooms, and think about those rooms when they're empty because nobody is ill or somebody got healthy, or think about those rooms when they're empty because somebody passed away, or think about the doctors and the nurses and the administrators and the chaplains and the people who work in the hospitals and the ambulance drivers and the EMTs. Like, to really let those little cues be heart openers, maybe. That's a really interesting insight about the way that you pray. I also want to comment. I loved that you said you journal, and you that is prayer for you. Is
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
that is? I didn't know until, I don't know, a handful of years ago. I'd never really thought to give myself permission to pray in writing. Is that silly, Danny? But I never equated writing with prayer. I always thought prayer had to be with my eyes closed. I mean, I didn't literally think that, but my behaviors suggested that I only understood prayer to be, I don't know, sitting around a table, close your eyes, hold hands, and bow your head, and invoke a higher power and say amen at the end. And then I started writing prayers. And I started writing prayers in a way, this, some of you know this who are listening, that the origin story of Between actually started with a social media account called Today I Pray. And the way I formatted my prayers was just, today I pray for dot dot dot, and I'd fill in about 4 lines and I'd say amen. Part of the reason I liked doing it that way was because I was giving myself a new permission to to connect spiritually without the need for language that I had actually always found inaccessible and obstructive, sort of Christianese language, saying all the right dear Jesus, little baby Jesus stuff, like all the special words. I just never, that stuff never worked for me. It never connected to me. And I always found it to be a wall more than a bridge. And so anyway, praying and writing was another thing that was a revelation for me. So I loved hearing you say that. What does prayer work in your life? How does it work?
What a question. Is prayer supposed to work? How is prayer supposed to work? Do we need to redefine what we think it means if prayer works? Does it only mean that a prayer works if you pray for healing and a person is healed? Is that the only way prayer works? I don't believe so. I believe prayer is not to change God. I don't believe prayer is to necessarily even change a situation. I believe prayer is like this morning, as I'm doing my meditations, I'm doing them outside, I'm watching the clouds. There's like some storm clouds, it starts to drizzle, then there's some big white puffy clouds, some pink clouds from the sunrise. And it dawned on me that my prayer is not to change the clouds. My prayer is to not change the day ahead of me. My prayer is not to change anything but the voices in my head and the position of my heart for the day ahead. So, if we think prayer is working, it's an internal system that it needs to be working on, not the external forces around us.
Hmm. Yeah, the I think I've shared before on another podcast episode that probably multiple times that having a pastor in a church one time say that maybe this prayer that I'm praying for people who are doing things that I disagree with won't work on them, but it will work on me.
Mm,
It'll remind me of who I want to be. It'll remind me of how soft I want my heart to stay. And that idea that, I don't know if these words, quote unquote, reach God, but they do reach me. I
mm,
I this is like a clumsy metaphor, but it works in my life. I'm a runner. I like the consistency of running. I like the ease and accessibility of running. I literally put on shoes and go out the door. I don't have to know if the gym is open or closed. I don't have to have a membership. I don't have to, It could be raining or snowing or sunny or 100 degrees, and I still can do it. I don't always want to, but I still can. And running helps me feel physically healthy. It helps me feel in control of small things in my life that mostly feels out of control. It helps me. Uh, it helps me feel disciplined. It helps me, right? Like it just kind of is a practice that leads to a better Matt. I've discovered prayer to be something similar. That uh, I don't know. I don't know if I pray for somebody's healing. I don't know. I don't know if that works. Like I almost don't care, if I'm being honest, because it is not about, for me, Matt Matson. It's okay if it is for other people, but for me, it's not about that. It is about the practice of holding compassion, the practice of acknowledging other people's life and pain and hopes and dreams and fears and losses and grief, acknowledging those things to keep my heart tender. Because if I practice prayer enough, I keep my heart tender so that I am prepared the next time I encounter somebody and that encounter needs a tender heart. And I just, at the very least, I think prayer can be, by the way, a bunch of other stuff and might be a bunch of other stuff. But at the very least, that for me is a personal practice that is a connection to God. For me, that like being connected to the vine, being connected spiritually is really about continually connected to the vine so that I'm constantly fed loving energy and can feed loving energy, my own loving energy back out into the world. And so for me, prayer is at the very least on the baseline, a practice of staying connected, a practice of keeping my heart tender.
I love that. I would even say your running is your prayer. I think people even think of, even, journaling. You're like that makes sense as a form of prayer. But what if our labor, what if our efforts, what if our everyday tasks are also prayerful? They're not necessarily like, dear God, blah, 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 amen type of format. But when you're gardening, when you're in the soil of the earth, when you are observing, the creation around you, that is a prayer. That is taking time to be still, to be present. And for you running, sorting through those thoughts, exercising your body, feeling your heart, feeling your breath, right? Like that is connection. That's staying connected to the vine for you.
Yeah. Yeah. There's there are two, one Bible passage that is very, very short, and one quote from Richard Rohr I want to share that might amplify what you were just saying, Danny. Um, the passage from First Thessalonians, the pray continually or pray without ceasing,
Mm-hmm.
depending on the translation. Um, pray without ceasing is, I think, to a lot of people who prayer is either a thing that happens in church or a thing that happens, when we say words while we're holding hands and saying grace around a table, or when we fold our hands at night and say dear Jesus and amen at the end. Praying continually, praying without ceasing sounds physically impossible, sounds loud, sounds like my voice would run out at some point, sounds pretty annoying for everybody around me if that's all I'm doing is praying constantly. And
That's just
so,
Matt. He's just praying.
yeah,
Don't
he
mind him.
just doesn't stop. Yeah. Yeah. He hasn't stopped for years. He just keeps talking. And yeah, not a great listener, that Matt, but he does pray. He
But he
does
does
pray.
pray.
Yeah. Yeah. uh, I don't know. That sounds like a crazy thing, but um, uh, obviously, I'm not the first person to think about this. That concept. What does that think? What does that mean? Uh, But I don't know. I kind of revisited that thought, and I came across this passage from Rohr, from Richard Rohr. Prayer is not primarily saying words or thinking thoughts. It is rather a stance, a way of living in the presence. I'm going to read that again. Prayer is not primarily saying words or thinking thoughts. It is rather a stance, a way of living in the presence. And I wonder if maybe pray without ceasing, uh, maybe what was meant by that is this idea of encountering the world in a particular stance, a prayerful stance, uh, a way of being, a way of living in the presence, a way of being fully open, with an open soul and a tender heart, and prepared prayerfully to receive and to listen. Can listening be a prayer? Can just being and like fully being present, can that be a prayer? That this just has me really just revisiting this concept of praying unceasingly, praying continually. What do you think about that, Dan?
Mm, I love Rohr's work. I love how he framed that truly as a stance because I believe that's what prayer is. For me, I view prayer as opening myself up to the world, like protecting myself enough, making sure I'm healthy and equipped enough and empowered to then open myself up to the present moment, open myself up to the world around me. That's why I primarily use prayer, is so that I don't miss the moment, don't miss this present moment. So I do love that bridge of pray without ceasing is just opening ourselves up to this present moment by standing in it, having a posture and stance within it.
Think about there are times when maybe I'm having a conversation with somebody, and maybe they share something with me that is heavy, that is real, that is difficult even, uh, and I find myself, I was reflecting on this, like I involuntarily find myself closing my eyes. I often put my hand on my heart. This is not a
Mhm.
conscious thing. Like I was reflecting on noticing that I do this. I close my eyes. I put my hand on my heart, and I think when I do that, I'm not thinking anything. I'm not like using words. I'm maybe tapping into something else. Like I am just close, like experiencing a moment, and just honoring. I think I just want to honor people with my presence. I don't really know what I'm doing, Danny, but if I'm reflecting on it, like I know I'm not in my mind saying, "Dear God, fix everything for this person, make them." I'm not doing that. I just don't. My instinct isn't to do that. I don't know why I put my hand over my heart. I can make some guesses, but I know that I do it, and I know that I close my eyes, and I know that I'm just silent for a couple moments. And I wonder about that, Danny. Like is that? I think there are instinctual ways that we as humans um, almost react, like physically, or like our body reacts. We react differently, that I think is prayerful, that I think is a stance, one of the stances of prayer that maybe Richard Rohr is hinting at there. And for me, this is almost like what it means to pray continually. This isn't words. I'm not filling the space with, words. Words are great. I love words. Words are good, but there's another level that feels, I don't know, like that, that is just instinctual, maybe is the right way to describe it. I'm curious if you've got anything like that, if you've got any experiences like
I think exactly, we think of worship and prayer in such traditional temples, structures. But what Roar, and I think you and I are trying to remind people, and what Between is reminding people about, is that these spaces that we live in, these spaces between one another, are actually worship, prayer, so sacred that when something heavy happens, and you're part of it, you're showing a physical response and you're opening yourself up to be vulnerable in that space, to remind somebody that, like, your heart hurts, which means my heart hurts, because we are interconnected in our life. I'm interconnected with all of creation. Even if it's a fleeting moment, even if it's a stranger passing by, that space is so sacred and so much more interconnected than our finite brains and human eyes can even recognize. That in that moment, you are reminding yourself and maybe even reminding that person of, we both know heartache. We both feel something. When I have people specifically, come up and they say, can I pray for you? Rarely am I going to say no. And I also recognize that while they're praying for me, they're actually helping themselves. It, that's not a bad thing. That's not, but it's helping specifically, in our world, in our culture of thoughts and prayers, tragedy strikes, thoughts and prayers. Yes, it's for the tragedy. It's more so for us to not make sense of it, but to connect with it, to be like, that's me. We're looking in a mirror. We are interconnected. We are intertwined in this human life. We're all just part of this web. So when people are saying prayers for others, it's usually to steady their own mind and steady their own heart.
Man, but you also just said we are interconnected. We are one. We like that. Yes. Yes,
Mm.
Danny. Yes. Like that circle of can I pray for you? Yes. I'm praying. The truth is I'm praying to steady my own heart. And you receiving that. Like there
Mm.
is this cyclical experience that is happening. I also just want to Barbara Brown Taylor wrote, to be with another person is one of the closest encounters with God we may ever have.
Mm-hmm.
And that idea that that me praying for you or you praying for me or us praying together is literally looking God in the face, and like the way that we might try to talk with this idea, this unknowable idea of God up here through the only tools we have, which is relationship with each other, which is conversation, which is our presence with each other, our experience of each other. To your point, holding our heart and saying, my heart hurts because your heart hurts. Like that is, my heart hurts because your heart hurts, which means that the heart of God hurts, feels this, holds this, knows this truth that you're experiencing right now. To be with another person is one of the closest encounters with God we may ever have, Barbara Brown Taylor wrote. And that to me is central to maybe an unfinished theory that I have, which is conversations are prayers if we are fully present in them, if we honor them as such. And maybe the most potent prayers there can be, because the image of God is receiving them directly right in front of you. That person you're talking to, may be the closest encounter with God you'll ever have.
Conversations are prayers, because not one for small talk, and have noticed that when you get beyond the weather, the news, the media that's circulating for the week, and when you intentionally are listening to the way people are talking, it is very prayerful. I don't know about you, but have you ever been in one of those conversations? My husband jokes I'm a good listener. I'm not a great listener. Uh, but usually when I'm in a conversation with someone, I'm hopefully sometimes listening better than I give myself credit. But then there's always like a trick, like there's always something that someone says. And I'm like, that what? Like, and it catches my attention, because it all of a sudden is their heart coming out in words. It's all of a sudden like this prayer. And it's, something that they're struggling with,
Yeah.
something that they're celebrating, something that's going on in their life that they bring up in casual conversation, hoping that someone will grab it, right? Hoping that someone is listening, hoping that someone will be like, whoa, you just said, like, that's heavy. This just happened the other day. I was with one of my good mom friends. We were on a little stroller walk and, we're just chatting back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And all of a sudden she says she had lost her mom many years ago before her children were born. And she says, I often wonder what my mom would be saying right now. Like what advice would my mom be giving? And that's a prayer. Like that hit, I like stopped and I was like, oh my gosh, I never even thought, like, how are you? That's unimaginable to have to think that way. And that was her prayer in words of, I miss my mom. I'm a mom and I'm now trying to figure this out without her advice and help. That is a talk about cyclical, talk about connection. I think in our everyday interactions and conversations, we might think they're casual, but people are giving us opportunities to see one another deeper and to see the sacred underneath the casual small talk.
Yes. Yes, they are. They are longing for us to see them, to hear them, and to know them. And we're not well practiced to be prepared to receive that, to see them and to know them and to hear them. We're very practiced at typing a snarky response on social media. We're very practiced at complaining about the powers that be or whatever's happening or asking for a manager. We're very practiced at those things, but we're not. This is, for me, spirituality, faith. It is many things to many people. Most importantly, to me, in this point in my life, my faith journey, my faith experience, my spirituality is most important to me to prepare me to be ready to receive and to see and to know and to hear people when I'm with them. I think that's for me, God, it feels like God is pointing me there. God is pulling us together, and the gravity between us that is pulling us together is this whisper that is asking me to be ready, to be fully there, because that's all we got. These moments, these experiences, these conversations, these shared lives. This is it. This is all we got. We don't get to take anything with us. This is it. And I am I am moved by that. So moved that I try to incorporate prayer into my life so that I can actually be prepared for those moments. Um, I wanted to I wanted to maybe talk to you about the universality of prayer, how prayer is universal, how many people prayer, how many people pray. Lots of people pray, as it turns out. I want to read something that I reread this morning out of a book by Thich Nhat Hanh called "The Energy of Prayer," and this is actually the introduction that Thich Nhat Hanh did not write. This is by Larry Dossey, Dr. Larry Dossey. This is the very first words in this book, and so I'll read that. Um, but I want to maybe ask you after I read this and share some statistics. As a pastor, I'm curious, Danny, how do people talk to you about prayer? How do they ask you to pray for them? Do they? I don't know. Do people talk to you and like, are they like, I don't know how to pray. Can you teach me how to pray? I'm curious as a pastor, what are you like a prayer repair technician? You know what I mean? Like is that part of your job? I'd be
Yes.
curious about that. Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm gonna read this. I'm gonna read this, and we'll talk about it. So this is Larry Dossey writes this in the introduction to Thich Nhat Hanh's book. The urge to pray is universal. We know of no culture, past or present, in which prayer does not occur. People pray when they are happy and sad, during celebrations and tragedies, at births and deaths, during peace and war, in cathedrals and cars, in poverty and plenty. Prayer, it seems, is in our blood. Like the cosmic background hum that has filled the entire universe since its beginning, prayer is a continual presence on earth, a constant global hum. Well, I'm going to keep reading because I like the rest of this paragraph. And like the background hum of the universe, prayer reminds us of our origins. For what is prayer but communication with the absolute, from whence we arose, with whom we are connected, and to whom we shall return? Prayer is universal. The urge to pray is universal. In fact, so much so that the Pew Research Center says 44% of U.S. adults pray at least once every single day, and an additional 23% pray every week or at least once a month. Young adults, even young adults, 18 to 24-year-olds, this is a study from 2 years ago, 18 to 24-year-olds, about 27% of them pray daily, which is quite a bit relative to, I think, what a lot of people would expect. And 33% of Americans often or always say grace before meals. Prayer is pretty universal, Danny. Have you helped as a prayer repair technician? Have you helped people, and how?
One of my favorite ways to help people as the prayer repair technician is I've noticed in specifically church culture, and really most groups, communities, cultures that I'm a part of, it's so much easier to pray for other people. And it's so much easier to pray for news headlines, tragedies. And rarely do people internalize prayer and bring forth what's in their hearts to the table, because there's something too vulnerable about that. But yet they can share, my neighbor just received this, diagnosis, my cousin, my like that is always, not always, I'm going to say 90% of the time, the prayer requests that I personally receive from members of the church and the community are on behalf of somebody else. Rarely is it pray for me, which I always attempt then to come back to them and say, this must be really hard. This is a heavy topic you just brought to me. How does this make you feel? What do you need in all of this? Because I think people are so quick to worry about others that the care for themselves becomes last. And maybe this is that, Christian martyrdom, right? Like other people are more important than myself. But I've noticed that, and it's definitely a vulnerability issue that we have, not just in church culture, but in culture around the world, that people are afraid to be seen because people are afraid to be hurt. But I rarely get the prayer requests for self.
Yeah, so that's really interesting. I'm thinking about even my own discomfort with praying by myself quietly in my head for, like, would I say this prayer? Would I say, dear God, heal my feeling of loneliness, or heal my need to be proud, or like need to be recognized? Would I heal my just sadness at kind of missing my parents, and I haven't seen them in a while? Like would I? I wouldn't pray that prayer. I shouldn't say. I should say I haven't prayed that prayer. I'm holding in my heart, Palestinian children. Sure, I'll pray that prayer. Yeah, like
Mm-hmm.
that's an easier prayer. Like what? How? Why is that? That doesn't make any sense. I don't know. I'm processing that out loud, Danny. I don't have a point. I'm just.
But you're not alone. And 90%, I'm included in that 90%. I have my people that I will directly, I need your prayer. But when it comes for like, who in this room needs prayer? Who needs prayer? I'm not going to be the first to raise my hand because I am going to look weak. And maybe it's ego, maybe it's my own strength, maybe it's I can handle this. None of us can handle life. We can handle life on the best days.
And the irony is, like, we're afraid to look weak. Man, spot on, Danny. You hit the bullseye there. The irony is, we're taught to pray in physically humble stances, right? I mean, literally, like, get on our knees, bow our head, close our eye, like, uh, physically demonstrate humility, and yet many of us are afraid to acknowledge that our souls need help. What an interesting problematic insight, Danny. That's something.
And so I'll even add typical prayer settings, especially, there's churches that they have the kneeling bar, right? You kneel and you take on this humble posture, recognizing I'm human, I cannot control this. Divine, I need you to intercede, I need you to be you, I need you to do your thing because I'm weak. And yet, even for myself, I rarely pray on my knees. I rarely pray with my hands folded. I rarely pray with my eyes closed, if I'm being honest. And my husband's grandparents, he always talks about how they would get up at like 4 o'clock in the morning and like on their knees in the living room for 2 hours. Because he talks about visiting them in the summertime was the best and the worst because they had to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and pray with his grandparents. And yet, there's been times when I've been curious, specifically times when I'm so prideful of my own strength and resiliency that I go, what does that look like? What does that feel like? And I'll tell you from personal experience, when I kneel down, when I take on a humble posture, there is something to that.
Yeah.
There is something to giving ourselves, surrendering ourselves over to something greater than myself.
Yeah. Wow.
There's something to that.
You know what I want for people after this podcast, if they're listening, I want people to feel confident in their. I think you actually prompted this. You said this when we were preparing for this episode, but um, I do. I want people to feel confident that they can pray in their own way, that they can pray in a way that their soul needs today. They probably pray differently than they did when they were 11 years old, and probably will pray differently 10 years from now, and all that's okay. I want people to feel permission and confidence to pray in a way that is in a language that makes sense to them, in a posture that is helpful for them, in um, in silence or with noise, wordlessly or with groans. I want people to feel confident praying to other, like, you don't have to, you can pray to whoever, whatever, however you want. I don't always pray. When I pray, it's not always quote unquote to God. I don't, my understanding of God doesn't work that way. And by the way, a lot of very traditional faith traditions don't work that way either. There's a whole lot of praying to saints, or a whole lot of praying to, I was rereading this book about Vietnamese Buddhism, praying to uh, praying not for, but praying to people who have died. Or even Thich Nhat Hanh writes in this book about praying to people who are alive, literally praying to people uh, as expressions of oneness, as expressions or manifestations of God, of this thing that we all can't quite name. Uh, Praying to angels or to spirit guides, or to pray. You've got permission, and I hope you have confidence and feel empowered to massage your soul with prayer, because your soul and your heart needs that massage to stay tender and to stay connected. I really believe that is a massive benefit of a prayerful practice. Danny, if you were to coach somebody right now who's listening, maybe even like, oh, this would be fun, Danny. uh, let's invite our listeners to pray right now.
Hmm.
and give them some silence and some space. And maybe you could coach them, or you could prompt them to think about prayer, or to um, maybe just pray alongside them. I don't know, Danny. Does anything like that make sense? We should have prepared this segment. The
No, what I invite people to take a moment. And so this is that moment for the listener. Take this moment. Pause. If you're driving, pause this episode and come back to it. Notice what's around you. Take a moment to notice the beauty. Maybe it's the comfort of a blanket, of a couch, the home you're in. Maybe you're at a bus stop or on a plane. So there is discomfort, but whatever it is, to recognize that. And once you've recognized your physical surroundings, you can nestle into your seat, nestle into where you are right now, this body that you maintain every single day, this body that allows you to live your life. And what's going on within that body? Is that worry? Is that excitement, giddiness, grief, joy? Once you recognized what's going on within you, what do you need to release? What do you no longer want to have a grip on? Give that over to what is greater than you. Send it with love. Send it with your deepest compassion. Thank it for teaching you, but let it go. And now, your hands, your feet, your word, how can they be an instrument of justice, of peace, and of love in the world? And so once we've taken the time to observe the world around us, observe the world within us, release what's no longer serving us, we are better equipped to go about today. And I do close it with amen.
So be it. Thanks,
So
Danny.
be it. Mm.
Listen, folks, I don't know that we figured out anything about prayer in this particular conversation. I'm certainly left with as many questions, if not more, than we started with. But I did enjoy the conversation and sacredness of it, and I hope that Danny. Here's what I hope. I hope other people listen to this and experience it as earnest and sincere and as what it really is, which is just the two of us trying to figure out everything together, like just trying to just wondering and wondering out loud and respecting each other and honoring one another's presence and experience and the bits of wisdom that both of us have maybe bumped into along the way that we can share. I'm really grateful for this conversation, Danny, and I'm grateful for your partnership and for the contributions to Between that you've provided, and to all the wonderful ministry work that you do, Danny. I've got a lot of respect for you, and I think I'm really lucky that I get to invite you to do stuff like this, and you're like, yeah, heck yeah, let's go.
Thank you. Yeah, there are probably dozens of podcasts that have deep theological meaning and understanding of prayer, which are great. And I think people need permission to wonder, need these spaces to be curious, need these spaces of there's not one way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, listeners, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you. As always, Between Church, that's our website on the internet. You can find all the different ways to participate in Between. Between, of course, is a global, highly inclusive ministry entirely about the intersection of faith and human connection. And we're trying to do that in a lot of different ways. We're experimenting with um, experimental ministries, I guess is the best way to talk about it. Maybe you sign up for our text messages, or what we call sacred texts. Make sure you're subscribed to our email list. Follow us on Substack and on social media. Participate in our live events that we have. Thanks for listening to this podcast. Maybe share it with somebody. Now's about the time that I should probably start promoting this book that is coming
Mm.
out in February. It's called Cathedrals of Connection: Your Invitation to Everyday Sacredness. coming out from Turner Publishing, and I'm really excited about that. It doesn't come out till February 2026. So whenever you're listening to this, you can't pre-order it today, the moment that we're recording this, but I think sometime fall 2025 you'll be able to start pre-ordering. And I think it's all about this too. It's all about the intersection of faith and human connection, and all the different ways that we can create sacred moments of human connection, which is desperately needed in our world. And Danny, thanks for demonstrating what sacred human connection looks like on this conversation. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. So grateful for it, Matt.